we've got a huge portfolio that extends from crypto to AI to iGaming and everything in between.
Why Sui?
I felt like I found something I've been looking for a number of years in crypto. Wall Street is like dining out on AI every day. I think the partnership that was announced with Google and A2P is the start of what's to come. The throne of like who is the Google of finance hasn't been won yet. We have one kind of ambition, which is to become the Sui bank.
You're lending, you're investing,
yeah,
ultimately to accumulate more cash or more Sui.
2025 is going to be a landmark year because...
How's it going?
Good man, how are you?
Good, thank you, good, thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, I'm glad we could do this.
Fantastic.
So guys, a few years ago, I was on the hunt to find the best pizza. So I went to Italy and I traveled the whole of Italy, and I'm glad to say that at the end of it, I really found the best pizza in Italy. Now I'm on the same mission, but it's a mission to find the best treasury company out there. We've got all these digital asset treasury companies and they're all telling us a big story. And I'm on a mission traveling the world, meeting with the best people to try and find the best digital asset strategy company out there. And right now I'm sitting here in Singapore and I've got a friend who's here.
Hey.
He's the chief investment officer of the Sui investment company. I think you guys are going to have a lovely conversation here today. Good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
How's the energy been this week?
It gets bigger every year, right? You know, we've both been coming to this conference for a number of years. I think like the amount of people here from like TradFi this year is pretty crazy. You got like investment banks, you got heads of technology research, you've got commentators from all of the big TradFi kind of media outlets. It's pretty different.
It's different, right?
It's different. I feel it.
Much more mature.
Yeah, I wouldn't say mature necessarily. Crypto's still a bit immature at times, but I think that, you know, as a whole, our industry in 2025 is unlocking something completely new, which is Wall Street. This is the year that will go down in history when I think crypto changed.
For context, we're sitting here in the presidential suite in Singapore. If you look down there, you can actually see the racetrack where the Grand Prix is going to be happening later on today. But we're not here for the Grand Prix, we're here for the Alpha. So we're going to get going. So, Stephen, you're one of the most astute investors in the space. I mean, for people who don't know you, you've got an amazing track record of picking winners. I think Pump Fund was in your portfolio. I think
Yep.
Plasma was also in your portfolio.
Correct.
Just give me a little bit of background. Like, tell us about your crypto investment journey.
Yeah, so prior to founding 𝗕𝗥𝗏𝗧 with my business partner Marius, I was actually in artificial intelligence for many years. I started an AI company at the University College London AI Research Lab alongside DeepMind, actually. DeepMind was acquired. We then went on to raise capital. We built a natural language processing company that specialized on enterprise data, like so investment banks like Nomura, Deutsche Bank, asset managers like Vanguard and Capital Group all use our software. And what we did is we analyzed unstructured communications data in emails, in Bloomberg chats in the front, middle, and back office, and we converted that into structured machine-readable data that can be consumed downstream in the broader IT real estate. So think things like Murex, Salesforce, ServiceNow, event streams in Kafka. So it's all about driving operational efficiency and growth in these large enterprise companies, and we ultimately sold that company to a New York Stock Exchange listed acquirer. During that time, Marius and I, who's a good friend and collaborator, we've been together for about like 10 years as business partners. He actually red pilled me on crypto. I was like, knee deep in.
What year was this?
This is around 2017.
Okay.
So Marius actually met with 𝗕𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗧 and 𝗕𝗥𝗏𝗏 from Ethereum at the time because they were looking at pursuing the use case for physical commodities on blockchain. Marius came from Glencore, where he kind of ran the coal trading business in Asia, and they got connected and they were looking to explore that use case. Gavin obviously left. We became investors in Polkadot. We then also kind of LP'd into a few crypto funds early on, one of whom, Slow Ventures, was in the seed round of Solana. We ended up purchasing Solana along the way. We did very well from that. We, also invested in things like FTX, so not everything was great.
Well, FTX was great for a while.
It was, yeah, but you learn those lessons. And then we've invested in, I think, a few of the big kind of winners in each cycle. We, were early in Telegram and Ton. We were obviously one of the early investors in Mist and Labs, and we'll talk a lot about that today. We were in, one of the first investors in Plasma, who actually were working in our office for many months. Also, Pump.Fun, who were working in our office. So we've hit some really great, companies. But there's many more than that. We've invested in exchanges, decentralized exchanges, fully homomorphic encryption businesses, security businesses, and not just crypto. 𝗕𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗧 is a proprietary investment business that I started alongside Marius and another partner. We've got really interesting domain expertise in iGaming. So we're probably one of the most prolific investors in things like crypto casinos, predictions markets. Some of our companies that are non-crypto are listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So we've got a huge portfolio that extends from crypto to AI to iGaming and everything in between.
Okay, so now you are focused on Sui, and you're focused specifically on a Sui treasury company, a digital asset treasury.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to start off in the beginning. Why Sui?
Yeah. So when I met with the Sui team, well, the Mr. Labs team rather, in Palo Alto at the beginning of their journey, I felt like I'd found something I've been looking for a number of years in crypto. Coming from the artificial intelligence world, you know, the engineering talent is extremely high, and it's a very kind of small group of people that were working on these kind of deep learning projects, these kind of, you know, one-shot learning LLMs. And, you know, when I kind of came into the crypto space, I think crypto is quite a broad church. There are some amazing cryptographers, but there's also like a bit of a wild, like, diversity of engineering talent. And I wouldn't say it's as mature. So, you know, when I came across these kind of 5 incredible founders who were hand-selected by Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook to build Libra, I was like, hold on, this is radical.
Is that a true story? Because I know the story goes that the blockchain team was supposed to be like the hotshot team, but is that really true? Like that the guys that were running the blockchain project, which was DM or
so there was Libra and there's DM, the stablecoin project, right? And you know, Evan was the head of research. So Evan Cheng's the CEO of Miston, and he ran the research team for Libra, and he's like a decorated engineer from Apple previously. He's actually created a piece of technology that's on every iPhone today. This is the caliber of this team. Sam Blackshear, the CTO of Miston, invented Move when he was at Facebook. Why? Well, one of the things Zuckerberg tasked him with was benchmarking the current state of tooling in the market. He looked at the EVM Solidity. He looked at, you know, Solana's kind of Rust implementation. And he looked at C++, Java, the whole stack, right? And, you know, what he did is he actually designed a programming language, a smart contract programming language for crypto. And that's pretty insane to think about, like, what that takes and the amount of kind of R&D and research and funding that goes into that. I think they had like a multi-billion-dollar R&D budget, and they created Move, and then they implemented, when they left, Sui Move, which is a distinct implementation of the Move programming language. And I think, you know, when it comes to thinking about like who this team is, I think they've been fairly media shy, if I'm honest, over the past few years. They're quite humble. But, you know, Kostas, the chief cryptographer, he's designing...
He's a genius.
But he's designing cryptography for WhatsApp. WhatsApp's used by, like, billions of people around the world. And so this team had, like, one mission statement at, you know, at Libra, which was to roll out a crypto network to 3 billion users at the time. And they took that same mission when they left, and they kind of created Mr. Labs, which has built Sui. So what you get to buy into is probably the most advanced crypto team in the market, who's building a network for true internet scale.
So you really think that even when you look at the Solana team and the scale that they're getting, you're still putting chips on Sui and going, this team is actually better?
Right. Like, I think Solana are an incredible team, right? And what they've achieved in terms of like the marketing and also creating probably the meta of high performance blockchains has been astonishing. And you cannot but give them a lot of credit. We made a lot of money from Solana, as I mentioned, and very grateful for that. And we've invested in, obviously, Solana ecosystem companies. But ultimately, you know, when we look to the future about what's coming in Web3 and what we really need, we need like new things, new internet scale applications. I think for the past 10 years since smart contracts were invented, we've seen a lot of the same stuff, kind of clones of perpdexes, borrow lending, and stablecoins, and they've all got product market fit, and that's great. Okay, but we need breakout use cases, and what we have with Solana and with Ethereum is an account-based model. That's kind of one view of the world. And in Sui, we have something radically different, which is an object-oriented data model, something that is focused on limitless programmability. And why that's interesting for me, coming from an AI background, is that, you know, there's been a lot of talk about like the future of kind of agentic commerce, and it's quite like an abstract kind of concept. But what I will say to you is that, you know, if we are to realize the promise of that technology revolution, it's going to be several orders of magnitude more events hitting these networks than we deal with today. right? And if you just imagine like the 700 million or 800 million weekly active ChatGPT users issuing a request at the same second or 10 requests at the same minute, and they said, I want to get 30%, yield from DeFi across, Bitcoin, wrap Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Sui, and these kind of agents come back with a set of things you could do, but they don't do it for you. And so like to cross that Rubicon from intent to action, that's like an extremely complex coordination layer. And similarly, the amount of events that will be emitted is substantially higher than we are used to today. And with Sui Move, what we have is this really limitless programmability based around this novel innovation in the object-oriented model. It means that agents can interact with objects. They can be autonomous. They can, be authenticated. They can use all of the Sui stack from Seal to Nautilus to have kind of, encrypted transactions, to have authentication, attestation. And ultimately, what that's going to require is multi-dimensional commerce and not something that goes, singularly through an account-based model. Unfortunately, we have limitations with that account-based schema. You've seen that with transactions getting like clogged up on Ethereum with gas fees spiking. Even with NFT mints on Solana, transactions don't always get there. And that's a problem.
Because they're focused on the account and not focused on the specific
Yeah,
object.
that's a fundamental kind of distinction between like account-based models and an object-orientated view of the future. And I think that in one sense, if you were to be kind of philosophical about it, you could say that's like a human-centric internet.
Yeah.
And the future of Sui with its object-orientated model could allow for the agentic internet, the agentic commerce. Now, right now we've kind of been maybe kind of a bit abused with like the rise of virtuals and then its collapse, and we think that kind of AI crypto's over. It's not true. Like if you look at Wall Street is like dining out on AI every day. Nvidia, the FANG stocks, like AI is such a huge business, and like we could unlock a huge new GDP of the internet, which is agentic commerce. Like that's so big. What's the TAM of e-commerce? What's the TAM of agentic commerce? And I think, at the bottom of that, you need a universal coordination layer to go from, as I say, intent to action, where autonomous agents are essentially, limitless in their kind of transaction throughput. And one thing I will say is that, the Sui cryptography team, headed by Kostas, who, as you know, is like a complete genius. It's off the charts. They've invented something kind of quite novel called Mr. SETI fast path consensus. And that allows you to route transactions dynamically through fast lanes, meaning that when that event payload hits the network, that transaction order flow can route through fast lanes, and other people who are doing transactions on the network won't be penalized. That's important.
Yeah. So, I mean, Kostas is one of the smartest guys I've ever met, and I think that's one of the innovations that he's been working on. What do you think it's going to take to get Sui to do that? Because it kind of feels like they've had great growth.
Yeah.
You got to take your hat off to them because they came in after Solana had been established and ETH had been established, and they've been growing faster than all the other blockchains.
Yep.
But they haven't hit that exponential rise of usage, right? So what do you think's missing?
Well, I think that, again, I'm very, in complete admiration of what Solana has achieved, right? But I think it took, 4 years before Pump.Fund came about.
Yes.
And I think Pump.Fund's like one of the few companies that I see is like truly innovative because they're pushing on the very white hot part of the internet. These are crypto native and social native young founders who are really challenging like TikTok and Twitch and Kick and this idea of like creator economies. Like we've heard that phrase used a lot, but I think Pump are the first people to really kind of like challenge that. But ultimately, like, that drives 50% of the revenues on Solana. If that went away today, what would be left? And I think, it's a great example of innovation from below. I think that the Sui team have been building like a full Sui stack from Sui, the canonical high throughput blockchain, Walrus, decentralized programmable storage, Seal for secrets management,
𝗙𝗥𝗢𝗙𝗙𝗙
for liquidity, Nautilus. There's a whole stack now. So, I'm looking for the explosion of new applications and like new kind of new industries that will emerge. I think the partnership that was announced with Google and A2P this kind of agentic framework that Google DeepMind announced about 3 weeks ago, and choosing Sui as a partner is the start of what's to come. I think that's super interesting to me.
For those people who didn't understand the announcement or didn't hear about the announcement, maybe just walk us through what that announcement actually was.
Yeah, so what's great is that someone who I think is the leader in AI, Google, has actually kind of penciled a framework that we could all look as a standard about how agents could actually deliver commerce. And they've chosen a number of launch partners. It's not just Sui, but Sui one of the ones. And I think, going back to my kind of analogy before about like all of those ChatGPT users hitting those requests at the same time, you need a universal coordination layer, and Sui could be the substrate that handles that. I think a really interesting thing as well is that during the process of kind of raising capital into Sui, we met with a ton of HFT firms on Wall Street, who are looking to become design partners with Sui, because they're saying, well, hold on, this object-oriented data model, what that allows for is like essentially like limitless scale. You've got like 300,000 transactions per second, finality in less than 300 milliseconds. But most importantly, you've got this like unique programmability. So that actually changes, what you can achieve with these HFT strategies and these algos. And we haven't seen that yet. Obviously, Solana's got Jump, and that's amazing. I think you'll see some of these big HFT firms partner with Sui, because ultimately, the throne of like who is the Google of finance hasn't been won yet. I just don't think it has. I think the opportunity is massive. I think Ethereum's got a liquidity moat, in its DeFi ecosystem. But I don't think that as I say, we've really broken out from perps trading, from borrow lend, and from stablecoins. What I will say to you is that over the past 5 years, there's been some kind of like ambitious claims from Solana to be like the home of NASDAQ. And I think that ultimately that's been kind of taken by Hyperliquid in 6 months, right? If you look at the marketing around payments, hopefully Solana Pay, and some of the marketing was about like potentially replacing Visa and MasterCard a few years ago. Well, in walks Plasma in 9 months, then in walks Tempo, stablecoin chains. So I think that these are all like big ambitions, but we've seen extreme competition coming in the past year alone, where some of these businesses are going to achieve on those marketing goals with like real products that people can use. But that's the great thing about crypto. I think there's a lot of tribalism. I think people want to like point fingers at others. Ultimately, at 𝗕𝗥𝗢𝗔, we're venture investors. We take risk capital and we put it into great people with great ideas.
Well, this is what I want to ask you. So you guys are like the best venture investors that I know. You've got a knack for calling things before they happen, and now you guys have committed to a NASDAQ listed treasury vehicle. And not only have you committed, but you're acting as the chief investment officer, which means that you're pretty much all in on Sui, and you're publicly all in on Sui. Why did you choose to go in on a treasury vehicle? What is the opportunity that you see for a treasury vehicle?
Okay, so there's a few things, right? The first thing, you've got to be bullish on the underlying technology and the team. As I mentioned, this is like the ex-Facebook team. There's no better team I've come across in crypto in the past couple of years. And I think that their ability to recruit, hardcore engineers from Silicon Valley is insane. I've met
that you can capture with a token. So you don't have to start a treasury company.
No, but I'm just saying like my bull case on Sui is high, right? In terms of where the price goes in the next year, the next 2 years, the next 10 years, right? That's the first reason why you would do it, right? Do you want to custody and accumulate this asset as part of a public company strategy? Yes. And number two, what do these DATs kind of represent? Well, I think they're a very unique opportunity to kind of change the status quo that we've seen in crypto for the past number of years, which is the foundation model. We have one kind of ambition, which is to become the Sui bank, a quasi crypto bank. That means we build a balance sheet, we kind of drive return on that balance sheet for shareholders. We are a source of liquidity in the ecosystem. We can make protocols. We can do super innovative stuff. We announced a token 2049, a partnership with the Sui Foundation, but most importantly with Athena. We, Sui originated 2 native stablecoins now on Sui. We're the counterparty, Sui USDE and USDI. So what that means is, as a public equity, you now get stablecoin exposure through us. With that deal, what we've done is we're taking 90% of the revenue from those initiatives, from the stablecoin flows, and we're putting it back into the Sui ecosystem through Sui and also through Sui, the foundation, to buy back tokens in the market and to build the balance sheet. I mean, that's super unique. You know, if you want to, like, stablecoin exposure on Wall Street is insatiable. Right now, you can buy Circle, you can buy Robinhood, you can buy Coinbase, and now you can buy SuiG.
So it's not really a treasury company; it's a bank.
Quasi-bank.
So maybe the terminology of treasury to me sounds like you hold and you manage money, but this is much more than that. Like, this is, you're acting as a bank because you're lending, you're investing, ultimately to accumulate more cash or more Sui, so that you can buy more Sui on the market.
And not just that, we're a bridge, right? We're a bridge between what I would call like latent demand on Wall Street. You know, demand has been throttled for years because of the previous government, the previous SEC regime, and you've seen an explosion of appetite in the public markets. Look at the IPOs of the past year, you know, from Circle to Bullish. Look at the price appreciation in Robinhood. You know, investors are dying to get exposure to crypto now that it's safe, now that it's a regulatory environment that is okay to allocate capital. And you've got, more importantly, you know, Chair Atkins talking about Project Crypto, where he's going to say most tokens are not securities. The path has never been brighter for crypto. And we, as SuiG, as the Sui Bank, we can actually absorb all of that demand from Wall Street into the Sui ecosystem. We're a bridge from TradFi liquidity into the growth of Sui. And, you know, we have really, I think, like, changed the game in the DAT space this week, you know, by originating stable coins. We've done that. Athena's a portfolio company at 𝗕𝗥𝗢𝗏. We've backed Guy for a long time. We think he's probably the best solo founder in crypto. And he's just a machine. And what we've done is we've teamed up the fastest growing stablecoin with the fastest growing blockchain. Both of our portfolio companies at 𝗕𝗥𝗢𝗏. Is that what we can do? You know, we are a very commercial and, I would say, capitalist management team. We're focused on driving revenue. We built $1 billion business at 𝗕𝗥𝗢𝗏 from our own capital. And, you know, we're just getting started with SuiG. And stablecoin exposure is one of the interesting things we're going to be doing. We've got a pipeline of very unique opportunities.
Tease us with some ideas, without mentioning names. I mean, tease us with, like, what else can we expect that you guys will be doing?
Look, this is a public company, so I can't give forward-looking statements. But what I will say is that we are going to be partnering with ecosystem companies. We're going to be doing very innovative things with our balance sheet. And we are going to be driving, you know, operating revenue in SuiG. People forget that these are not kind of like, you know, passive kind of asset managers. At the end of the day, we partnered with originally, you know, Mill City Ventures. That was the company that we did the pipe into, right? That was a non-bank financial lender, someone in the SME credit space. We obviously kind of rebranded to SuiG, and we're pursuing this very exciting.
Was that strategic? Was that strategic to partner up with a credit company?
Look, as I say, you know, we've looked at a number of opportunities. Being the quasi Sui bank, we see tons of opportunity. I'll put it this way: SME lending, SME credit is a $100 billion opportunity that's never been tapped by crypto rails. We're looking at everything, and ultimately, it's about driving operating revenue in the business. That's the difference with these DATs. It's not just about being a passive accumulator and staking the network. You want to drive return for shareholders.
Honestly, how much of your time is spent in SuiG versus the broader crypto opportunity today?
Well, look, we've got an incredible business at 𝗕𝗥𝗢𝗏, and I'm still very actively involved there because, you know, we have a great team, and, you know, we keep hitting bangers, like you say, like Plasma. That's an important part of what we do. And, you know, we want to keep giving capital to great entrepreneurs who come from all walks of life. You know, we are not going to discriminate because you're on a different network or you're on, you know, in a different ecosystem.
But I'm asking your specific time, because, like, I know when I've got a couple of business interests, and I know that one of them is my baby. We're like, you know, Banter is my baby. So
just to be very clear, like, as the CIO of a public company, I am like mission focused on turning this into a multi-billion-dollar business. So you know, every day, every night, I'm pushing the return on this investment for my shareholders. Like, that's my role. That's my fiduciary responsibility.
Your relationship with the foundation. First of all, how do you think the foundation have done in the last couple of years? How do you think that they've been as a foundation?
Well, I think, you know, the first thing is that when we did this, you know, we looked at the DAT space at the beginning of the year. We'd invested actually in one or two on the Bitcoin side because, you know, we are Bitcoiners as well. And there's also a few hardcore Bitcoiners at Sui, which is why we get along. We've got a good shared vision. And, you know, they announced Sui.
Sui is one of the biggest venues of Bitcoin for Bitcoin. I didn't know that.
Right.
It is.
So this week at Token 2049, they announced 𝗙𝗏𝗏. Okay. 𝗙𝗏𝗏 is going to be very unique because it's all focused on unlocking $1 trillion asset, which is Bitcoin, as collateral for DeFi. Never been done before, really. Yes. We've got like 1% of BTCs wrapped, right? Synthetic, and it doesn't really go anywhere because no one wants to take bridging risk and take security risk. I don't want to bridge my Bitcoin.
Yes.
What they've done with 𝗕𝗓𝗓 is the Sui validator set is now going to run a Bitcoin node, right? And so what they will be doing is offering the opportunity to mint stablecoins against Bitcoin that's held in secure qualified custodians and guaranteed by the security of the validator set, but as the speed of the Sui network. And we are thinking that's going to probably unlock a huge amount of DeFi liquidity into Sui.
So going back to foundation.
Yeah.
So how do they see you? And first of all, do you think that the foundation have done a good job? What are the flaws of the current foundation model?
Well, so when we decided to do this, right, I go back to the start, what I was saying before. I looked at the DAT space and I realized there was a gap in the market. That gap is to come to market in partnership with a foundation. We should be, the capital markets arm of Sui, right? That's what it should be like. We should be a much more aggressive,
capitalistic.
Capitalistic entity that does things that a foundation doesn't want to be seen to be doing. That's what we can do. But you got to be respectful to the people who created this tech, who are building, the future. And we got a great relationship. We've invested, I think, in like 7 of the companies on Sui's ecosystem, from 𝗕𝗓𝗓 and 𝗕𝗵𝗲 to SuiLend to 𝗕𝗥𝗢𝗏 to Walrus. We've done it all, and we've got very close personal relationships with the founders. Kostas and I were in the UAE together for the past 2 years. We've worked on relationships with the sovereigns there, on regulatory opportunities. We've introduced Sui to multi-billion-dollar listed gaming companies on the New York Stock Exchange to see if they want to deploy on Sui rails, right? So we've got a very close relationship based on mutual trust. In regard to the foundation model, or the question you ask, I think that, look, foundations are there to kind of support ecosystems. And, I would say that they're not necessarily focused on like return, right? Yes. The way in which they were set up in these kind of Cayman Swiss nonprofits, because of the previous regulatory environment, you couldn't drive an aggressive strategy. So I think that the opportunity for them is to partner with, us, a trusted, known investor, someone who's backed them for years, to say, hey, you go and drive the value and the vision of Sui in the public markets. Look, in the future, I think in the future, these DATs, if the regulatory environment becomes more favorable, maybe these DATs could buy the foundations. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? But what I will say is that 2025 is going to be a landmark year because the regulatory path's open. We got the Genius Act. We got like a stablecoin explosion. We've got obviously a pro crypto president, and the opportunity set is insane. Like, this year will be a landmark year where I think everything changed for crypto.
So you talk about the foundation and you talk about what they've invested in. What kind of things do you see happening in the future? Like, where do we go from here?
So for me, what I'm personally interested in, I'm not going to necessarily speak for the foundation because they're doing loads of cool stuff. The big thing for me, coming from an AI background, is I think that Sui, might be actually the home of AI in crypto. I think you might have meme coins on Solana, you might have AI on Sui, which I think is like $1 trillion opportunity.
Because of the object-based structure, because you cannot do it you really can't do it.
You can't do an account-based model. Like, how else are these agents going to take actions? They need to be able to interact with objects to kind of have this very unique fast path consensus mechanism. They can't be blocked. You can't have like billions of events being emitted by agents being stuck. It's like, in account-based models like Black Friday, and they all go through one till. Right? Yes. That's the best analogy. Yes. And an object-based model is like a multi-dimensional approach where transactions are flying all over the place without limitations.
Your example is a very good example, because the way that I see it is, an account-based model is we all go through one till. An object-based is we all go to the item that we want specifically, and we transact with the item that we want.
Yeah, and you can have different relationships with that object. They've got different properties. It's like, this is the word I'd use: programmable. You need limitless programmability to interact in this like multi-dimensional commerce space.
So you think Sui becomes the AI chain?
That's one use case.
Near Protocol, I want to remind you, Near Protocol is try to position themselves as the AI chain. Yeah. With 𝗙𝗓𝗓 being, having ties to Jensen Huang.
Yeah.
So you think Sui takes the cake for that?
I think Sui's going to be the winner, unequivocally, and that's like my bull thesis. Number two, as I mentioned, during the PIPE process, when we raised all this capital, we raised like $500 million from Wall Street. We met a ton of the HFT firms, many of whom invested in us, like Citadel, and they are super interested in this object-oriented model. Like, what can we do with HFT algos on that new substrate? Amazing. That's number two, because as I say, the Google of Finance, title hasn't been won yet. And thirdly, we've got investments in some kind of crazy companies, right? Like AI girlfriends, right? I think you're going to see a future where AI creators, right, are more successful, no offense, than inhuman podcast hosts. And I'll tell you why. Because the cost of production is minimal. You can release them at like parallel scale. And what's strange is that, you know, with all this kind of diversity of AI talent, AI creator talent, you might pick up these kind of strange unmet demands or niches on the internet.
Yes.
And what's interesting is
like
like
Adrian, my producer, is looking for an AI girlfriend, and I mean,
I can hook him up with one.
He's not very successful closing normal girls, but on AI girls, he might actually have success.
But look, imagine like these AI creators, right, start wanting to be, you know, autonomous in how they monetize with subscriptions, with, you know, tips with fans, with all types of activities that we haven't seen yet. That will be coordinated on this object-oriented model, because the agent could be an object. The assets they deliver to the users could be objects. You've got this whole new design space that's opening up, right? And then the third thing is stablecoins. If people go back and look at the kind of academic white paper history, not only was Move invented at Libra at Facebook, they also came up with a white paper called FastPay. I would recommend everyone goes back to look at it. That was one of the ideas behind Diem and the stablecoin kind of initiative they wanted to roll out. And a lot of that kind of design thinking has been incorporated, I'd imagine, in Tempo, the Stripe chain, and also in things like Plasma. Now, what I will say is a lasting thought. If the Libra team had not been restricted by the SEC and by the previous administration, I think it's fair to say that this would have been the biggest business in crypto, would have been bigger than Tether, bigger than Coinbase. And that's
thought the same thing.
That's what you're buying in with Sui. How can you not underwrite that?
Yeah, I must have thought the same thing several times. And in a way, I'm kind of happy that they didn't, because it allowed for a lot of other entrepreneurial businesses. I think that if Zuckerberg would have got it right, he would have eliminated a lot of the other stablecoin companies and AI companies that we have today.
One last thing, just one last thing. Quantum, right? We bought into a quantum fund about 2 years ago. We got a quantum portfolio. We actually bought into the GP of that fund. And, you know, go follow 𝗙𝗲𝗓, the chief cryptographer. He's been coming out with some amazing research on EDDSA blockchains and how to make Sui one of the few networks that's post-quantum secure. Quantum's coming whether you like it or not. And do you want to have a network that's going to be resistant?
He's mentioned
to Lazarus, to the Chinese threat, to any other state actor who might want to kind of break Web 2 encryption standards or Bitcoin's encryption standard or Shor's algorithm. Like, it's going to happen at some point. The scale of these compute infrastructures is rising exponentially. The threat vector is high, and post-quantum security is a thing of the future that Sui's building today.
I want to go to the last question around liquidity and volatility. So one of the reasons why MicroStrategy was successful and why the ETH stats have been pretty successful is because there's volatility and there's liquidity, and those are the two characteristics that you need for a successful Wall Street entity, right?
Yeah.
Sui doesn't have the volume. It may have the volatility. I must say, I haven't checked Sui vol. How much of a disadvantage do you think that you guys are at because you don't have the liquidity and volatility?
Yeah, I mean, we are, because we're younger. Like, Sui is a younger chain, right? You know, it's 2 years old, right? And I think that, you know, Saylor was a genius because he kind of spoke to two bases. He had, you know, the hodlers, the core, you know, orange army of Bitcoiners.
Yes.
You know, accumulate, never sell. And then he had Wall Street. And he speaks to two bases extremely fluently, extremely well. In Wall Street, he monetized volatility, vol in the underlying assets and vol in the stock. And he has been an innovator with financial engineering, with convertibles and preferreds, and given, you know, Wall Street investors who are starved of yield a way to actually get crypto exposure without owning the underlying. And that's been a flywheel. Okay. I think you're going to see, you know, other mature ecosystems like ETH, probably with someone like Tom Lee leading it, who's obviously a genius and a great like marketer. He'll definitely kind of lean into that. I think he's got great volume in the stock. But ultimately, you know, you need hedging venues around the token. You need a CME options listing. You need ETFs.
You don't have any of that.
We don't have them, but we're working on them. And I think again, you know, these are kind of opportunities that both ourselves and the Sui Foundation are working on. And I think we'll be realizing them very soon, as in like in months, not years.
Amazing. Listen, it's been amazing. It's been really insightful to dig into everything. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank
Guys,
you.
if you've enjoyed this conversation, just consider liking the channel, and there's links below to everyone's profiles, and there's links below to the share price, etc., etc. I'll see you guys again in the next episode. Until then, trade well, my friends.